I've never drawn an animation before. Everything about this process has been new to me. The movement, the timing, the planning, the way one drawing has led into the next. But for a while now, I've had this story living in my head and on paper. It started as a comic, as still moments and quiet scenes. And eventually I reached a point where I wanted to see if I could take it a little further. Not because I knew exactly how to do it, but because I wanted to learn. Anyone who knows me knows that I love animation. From making little stop motion Lego and plasticine animations with a family camera in my bedroom when I was 9, to watching almost every animated movie that has come out in the last 2 decades. From Wallace and Gromit and Treasure Planet to Kubo and the Two Strings and Puss in Boots for Last Wish. My whole existence on this planet has been accompanied by my fascination and downright obsession with animation. This project actually began as a comic, and then before that it was a recurring universe I would live in my dreams. That was the first way I found the world, the characters and the mood of it. I liked the stillness of the comic pages, how much feeling you can put into one frame. But over time I kept imagining what those moments would feel like with movement. A glance lasting half a second longer, hair moving in the wind, a quiet pause that changes the atmosphere of a scene. I think that's where the idea to animate it really started. The only issue was that I'd never actually drawn an animation before, so this whole thing became a learning process from the very beginning. I started making small test animations, not full scenes, just simple studies to understand motion a little better. Some were experiments in timing, some were about expression, and some were honestly just me trying to figure out what looked right and what definitely didn't. It was messy, it was frustrating at times, but it was useful. I think when you're learning something new, you need to let yourself be a beginner first, and be okay when something looks bad. One of the biggest things I realised is that animation asks you to think differently from illustrations or comics. When you're drawing a still image, you can focus entirely on that one moment. But with animation, every frame depends on the one before it and the one after it. You start noticing how much emotion lives in a moment. Even really small things. A blink, a slight turn, the pause before an action can completely change the feeling of a scene. Since the story already existed in comic form, I had a starting point. I had scenes I cared about, compositions I liked, and moments that already felt important to me. But adapting those into animation meant making new choices. Not every panel needs movement. Not every scene gets better by becoming more complex. So part of the process was deciding what to preserve from the comic and what needed to change in order to work as an animation. My process ended up being a lot of back and forth. I'd begin with a scene or a feeling that I wanted to capture, sketch out the motion, test it, adjust for timing, and usually repeat that several times. Sometimes a movement looked good in my head and strange on screen. Sometimes something really simple worked better than something ambitious. And a lot of the time it was less about making things flashy and more about making them feel alive. I decided to focus all my effort, all my learning, into a short, less than 2-minute scene. See if I was being crazy. If I liked what I made, then I would continue. If I didn't, well then my animating days would be over and I'd stop wasting every waking second I'm not working, renovating, or well, living my life, animating. I decided that no matter how janky the scene ended up, I was going to use it. As by the time I finished up the first episode, whenever that day comes, it would look like I was progressively getting better. And by the start of the second episode, it would be unrecognisable. For every clip I cringe to look back at, there are 2 others I'm proud to show. I finished the clips that made up the test section and laid it all out on the timeline, watching it over and over with subtitles at the bottom of the screen. And while I liked what I had made, I felt like it was missing something. This is where I placed a quick request on a Reddit board asking for voice actors who could help me with my sample. And after receiving over 100 messages showing interest, I picked the ones who I honestly thought brought my characters to life. And while I could gush about them all day, I will just say thank you so much. and I'll put their names in the description of this video and the credits on my animation. I sent them the script, and within 2 weeks I had their audio files, and before the end of the week I had edited their files into my test section and added other sound effects. I loved it. I'm still very much learning, and while I'm sure many people will pick holes in what I have done, as someone completely self-taught, I honestly believe that the only way from here is up. While I don't feel like I've suddenly become an animator just because I finished the first 2 minutes of this project, I do think I understand the medium more now, and I understand my own work differently too. There's something really special about watching a world you've carried in still images begin to move, even in small ways. It makes the story feel closer somehow, and I'll be continuing this journey into the future. This project started as a comic, then became a collection of experiments, and slowly turned into an animation. I wanted to share this video because I think the process matters just as much as the finished piece, especially when you're learning. So this is the story behind it, or at least the beginning of it. And if you want to watch the full animation itself, I've linked it below. Thank you very much for watching.